Stop buying AI software.
That is definitely one way to start.
No, I mean it. Just stop. If you are listening to this right now
Right.
and you're sitting on a board or you're a CEO looking at your capital allocation for next year, you probably have this massive line item for AI innovation.
Or in, digital transformation.
Exactly, digital transformation.
Yeah.
And honestly, there is a very high probability that you are essentially lighting that money on fire.
It's a harsh reality, but the data we're looking at completely backs that up.
We've been doing a deep dive into a really heavy stack of source material this week.
Mhm.
We're talking MIT data, internal strategy audits.
And that incredibly stark warning from OpenAI's Sam Altman.
Right. And all of these sources are pointing to a massive, really violent divergence in the market right now.
It's a divergence that I just don't think a lot of leadership teams have fully priced in yet. We're seeing this split between companies that are just buying AI software and companies that are building what the reports call the invisible empire.
The invisible empire. I love that term.
It's a great concept. But the terrifying part is that the data suggests if you are in that first group, if you're just buying software, you're walking into a trap.
See, that's a really strong claim.
Yeah.
Walking into a trap. Because usually buying software is the safe bet, right?
Traditionally, yes.
You buy the tool, you train your staff on the tool, and you get the efficiency bump.
Right. But the sources we're unpacking today argue that the specific type of AI that most corporations are rushing out to buy right now, it's about to hit a brick wall.
And we aren't talking about a wall in like 10 years. We are talking about a make-or-break horizon of 2026.
Exactly. 2026 is not some arbitrary date they pulled out of thin air. It's the projected saturation point where the agentic shift really takes hold.
So if your strategy right now is still based on the 2023 or 2024 playbook, you are technically already behind.
You're obsolete. And that's really the mission of our deep dive today. We want to audit that strategy. We need to move you from the 95% failure rate.
Which is a crazy statistic.
It is. We want to move you out of that 95% failure bracket and into this new category of the invisible empire.
Let's actually start with that 95% number, because when I read that in the MIT data, it jumped right off the page at me.
Yeah, it's sobering.
The report explicitly states that 95% of AI pilots fail to scale. Now, you have to play devil's advocate for a second here.
Go for it.
95% seems incredibly high. Are we talking about, sloppy tech startups throwing spaghetti at the wall? Or are we looking at the Fortune 500?
That is the scary part. It's actually more prevalent in the enterprise space, the big players.
Wow.
And we should be clear about what failure means here. It doesn't mean the software crashed or the code didn't work.
Right.
It means the pilot program didn't yield a return on investment that justified scaling it across the entire organization. It just sort of stayed in this pilot purgatory.
So it technically works, but it just doesn't matter.
Exactly. It doesn't move the needle on the business. And the diagnosis from our sources on why this happens is fascinating.
It really is. They argue that companies are failing because they're applying AI to marketing fluff.
Yes. Marketing fluff versus operational architecture.
Let's define marketing fluff in this specific corporate context. Are we just talking about, writing blog posts?
Mostly, yes. Think about the very first thing everyone did when ChatGPT dropped.
They generated text.
Right. They typed in prompts, write me an email, summarize this 1-hour meeting, create a logo for my presentation.
It's all just content generation.
Exactly. The corporate obsession right now is outputting stuff. More text, more images, more slide decks.
The critique here is that boards are eagerly approving these massive budgets for tools that essentially just talk.
While the actual market value is violently shifting toward tools that do.
Right. So we have all these tools that just create more noise. We get more reports, more synthesized data, more bullet points.
But they aren't touching the actual levers of the business.
They aren't moving money. They aren't shipping goods. They aren't reconciling accounts.
Spot on. If you use AI to summarize a poorly planned meeting, that probably shouldn't have happened in the first place.
You haven't actually increased efficiency.
No, you've just subsidized inefficiency. You made a bad process slightly more tolerable.
Which brings us to the core friction point of this entire deep dive. The source material frames this transition as the death of the chatbot and the rise of agentic AI.
This is where we need to get very specific.
Right.
Because everyone has heard the term agent.
Yeah, it's definitely becoming a buzzword.
It is. But Sam Altman's warning was incredibly stark. He essentially said the era of the chatbot is over and the era of agentic AI is months away.
Months, not years.
Months away. So for a CEO listening to this right now, we have to break down the functional, technical difference between the chatbot they just spent millions on and the agent they actually should be building.
The simplest way I conceptualize it from the reports is retrieval versus execution.
That's a perfect framing.
A chatbot is just a retrieval engine. It's like a really fast, really smart librarian. You ask it a question, it accesses a massive database, synthesizes the information, and hands you an answer.
It answers the question, absolutely. But the burden of action is still completely on you.
Right. I still have to take that perfectly synthesized answer and actually go do something with it.
You still have to log into the ERP system. You still have to manually make the transfer or update the ledger.
But an agent is different. An agent has hands.
Yes, digital hands. In technical terms, it has API access. It has permission layers.
So it doesn't just ping me and say, hey, vendor X has a late invoice.
No, it has the authority to navigate your accounting software itself. It verifies the delivery against the purchase order. It drafts the reconciliation email to the vendor.
And it actually schedules the payment.
Exactly. Pending your final approval, of course, but the work is done.
Now, obviously that changes the risk profile significantly, doesn't it?
Oh, massively.
Because a chatbot giving a hallucinated or wrong answer is annoying.
Uh,
But an agent making a wrong payment, that's a huge liability.
It's a massive liability, and that is exactly why your entire corporate strategy has to shift right now. You have to build the infrastructure to handle that execution safely.
Because the upside is what the sources refer to as the digital workforce.
Right. You have to stop viewing AI as just another piece of software that helps a human do their job better.
You start viewing it as a worker that actually does the job.
Yes. If your strategic plan for 2025 relies on a human being sitting at a keyboard typing a prompt to get an output, you are actively building a legacy workflow.
That goes right back to the trap we mentioned at the start of the deep dive.
Exactly.
If you are just buying these off-the-shelf co-pilots for all your employees, you're essentially just making your humans slightly faster at typing.
You aren't removing the human bottleneck at all.
You're just giving the bottleneck a better keyboard.
That's a great way to put it. And that leads us directly into this concept of the invisible empire. This is the framework that really anchors that 2026 horizon we keep mentioning.
Sounds like the title of a spy novel.
It does.
But in the context of our source material, the invisible empire is purely about back-end operational infrastructure. Break that down for us.
So the invisible empire is essentially the antithesis of the chatbot hype.
Right.
The chatbot hype is highly visible. It's usually customer-facing. It's flashy. It's a big button on your website that says, look at our cool new AI.
Right, it's a PR win.
Exactly. But the invisible empire is a back-end architecture. It's about building a company where your main competitive advantage is this invisible layer of internal agents that quietly run the day-to-day operations.
The source material explicitly contrasts this with what they call linear strategy. And most companies today are still operating on a linear model, right?
The vast majority. Linear strategy is the default business model of the entire last century.
Give me an example of how that linear model works in practice.
Well, in a linear model, to grow your revenue, you generally have to grow your complexity.
Okay.
You want to double your sale. You need to double your headcount.
Yeah.
Which means you need more middle managers to manage that new headcount.
You need to buy more software licenses.
Right. So your revenue goes up, but your operational costs track right alongside it. It's practically a one-to-one correlation.
And it's painfully slow. Onboarding all those new people takes months.
Company culture starts to drip.
Communication breaks down. You get silos.
Exactly. Now, contrast that with the invisible empire, which relies completely on operational loops. This is the key technical differentiator for 2026.
Operational loops.
Yes. An operational loop is a self-reinforcing cycle. An internal agent handles a specific workflow, learns from any exceptions it encounters, and actually improves the process over time.
And it does all of this without increasing your headcount cost.
Zero marginal cost.
Let's ground this in a real-world scenario so it's not just high-level theory. Let's look at, say, a logistics company. Walk me through an operational loop versus a linear approach.
Perfect example. Let's take a major supply chain disruption. A port strike happens on the West Coast.
Happens all the time.
Right. In a standard linear model, a human analyst reads the news about the strike. They panic. They pull data from 3 different messy spreadsheets to see what cargo is stuck.
They get on the phone with the carrier.
They negotiate a new, probably terrible rate. They manually draft an email to the client explaining the delay. That entire process takes hours, sometimes days.
And it relies entirely on that specific human being exceptionally good at their job.
Exactly. And if that human analyst is out sick that day,
Or if the news breaks at 3 in the morning.
the cargo just sits there. You lose time and money.
Okay, now run that same port strike through an operational loop.
In an operational loop, an internal agent detects the strike instantly via a raw logistics data feed. Not a news article, but the raw data.
So no human is even reading the news.
Right. The agent instantly queries your ERP system for any shipments routed through that specific port. It pings pre-negotiated rate cards with alternative carriers via API. In milliseconds. It books the alternative route automatically, assuming the new cost is within a preset financial threshold. It updates the client portal with the new ETA.
And what does the human do?
It just flags the anomaly for a human manager to review the next morning over coffee.
That is incredible. So the human isn't in the loop to do the actual work.
Yeah.
The human is in the loop to audit the work.
Exactly. The agent handles the execution. And here is where it becomes a true loop. The agent records that, okay, carrier B was 20% more expensive, but we saved the delivery window.
So it learns.
It updates its own optimization model for the next time a port goes down. The cost of your operations completely collapses because the software is doing the heavy lifting 24/7 with zero latency.
And that is exactly where the 2026 horizon comes rushing in. Because if I am building these autonomous loops today, and my competitor is still hiring junior analysts to manually read spreadsheets,
You are going to crush them on unit economics.
it's not even a fair fight at that point.
It's a slaughter. By 2026, the gap between what the reports call agent-native companies and chatbot-reliant companies will be entirely insurmountable.
Because you simply cannot hire enough humans to compete with a company whose marginal cost of operations is trending towards zero.
You can't.
Now, this sounds amazing in theory, but I can hear the board directors listening to this getting very, very nervous.
I would be nervous too.
Right. Handing over the keys to the kingdom to an AI, giving it API access, tying it to bank accounts, letting it reroute global supply chains autonomously.
It sounds incredibly risky.
How do you actually audit this transition? How do you move a legacy company from talking about AI to actually doing this without blowing up the entire business?
That is the multi-million-dollar question, and thankfully, the source material provides a very specific audit metric for leadership teams.
Let's hear it.
It suggests that instead of asking your department heads, where can we use AI?
Which is what everyone asks.
Right. Instead of asking that, you need to ask a completely different question. Where is the money stuck?
Where is the money stuck? I really like that.
It's brilliant because it completely cuts through the technology hype. It focuses entirely on liquidity.
Every single company, no matter how sophisticated they think they are, has internal bottlenecks where capital just stops moving.
Exactly. Maybe it's in your accounts receivable department where an invoice is just sitting there waiting for a human to verify a minor dispute.
Or maybe it's in procurement, waiting 3 weeks for a manual signature on a completely standard purchase order.
Or customer onboarding. The money is just stuck in the pipeline.
And the traditional linear solution to money being stuck is always the same. Throw more bodies at it,
Hire more AR clerks. Hire more onboarding specialists.
which just drags you right back into the linear trap we talked about.
Precisely. So the Invisible Empire strategy says, audit your flow of capital, find the exact friction points where your money stops moving. That specific friction point is your target for an internal agent.
Not a chatbot to answer questions about the stuck invoice.
No, an agent to actually process and clear the invoice.
But wait, doesn't this require a massive overhaul of a company's data structure? You can't just slap a highly autonomous agent on top of a messy, siloed, 20-year-old legacy database.
You are absolutely right. And honestly, that is the real reason why 95% of these pilots fail.
They try to put a Ferrari engine in a go-kart.
Exactly. To build a functioning operational loop, you have to clean your plumbing first.
The plumbing.
Yes. You need structured data. You need APIs that actually talk to each other reliably. This is exactly why the directive is to stop buying software that just sits on the surface.
Stop buying the pretty dashboards.
Stop buying the conversational interfaces. Take that capital and invest it into the boring layer.
The integration layer.
Yes. It's the difference between buying a fresh coat of paint for a house and actually fixing a cracked foundation.
If a vendor tries to sell you a tool right now that promises to, enhance creativity or boost team collaboration.
Be highly skeptical.
But if they sell you a tool that autonomously automates the reconciliation of Class B inventory across 3 global warehouses,
Pay attention to that vendor. Utility is the new alpha. Execution is all that matters.
Let's pivot slightly to the leadership challenge here, because what you're describing, moving from content generation to task execution, from chatbots to autonomous agents, this requires a fundamentally different kind of management.
It's a massive shift in corporate governance.
You aren't managing software users anymore. You are technically managing a digital workforce.
And that is a huge cultural hurdle. Going back to the Sam Altman warning about agentic AI being months away, that implies the core technology is essentially ready now.
The tech isn't the bottleneck anymore.
Right. The limiting factor is the organization's ability to actually trust it and monitor it effectively.
So if I'm a CEO, my daily job actually changes. I move from approving tech budgets to essentially designing agent architectures.
Your job becomes defining the outcome, not managing the process. You define the corporate guardrails.
Give me an example of a guardrail.
You tell the system, agent, you are authorized to instantly refund any customer under $50, provided their lifetime loyalty score is above 80. Go.
You set the strict parameters, and the agent just endlessly executes the loop.
Exactly.
And obviously, we cannot have this conversation without addressing the elephant in the room, the workforce implication.
Yeah, we have to talk about the people.
If the agents are doing doing the execution, what are the human employees doing?
The humans have to move up the stack. Look, in the legacy linear model, humans are basically acting as the glue holding all these disparate, broken systems together.
We copy and paste data from Excel into Salesforce.
We read an email and manually update a calendar.
You move a file from one folder to another.
That is all just glue work. Agents dissolve the need for glue work completely.
So what do the humans become?
The humans become the architects. They are the ones designing the operational loops. They are handling the complex, high-stakes exceptions that the agents aren't authorized to solve.
So the human becomes the pilot, not the engine.
Correct. And frankly, a lot of legacy companies are going to wake up very soon and realize they have way too many people doing glue work and nowhere near enough people doing architecture work.
That is going to be a very painful workforce transition.
Painful, but absolutely inevitable.
Let's pull all of this together for the listener as we wrap up. We've covered the massive failure rate of these marketing fluff pilots.
Right.
We've covered the urgent technical shift from chatbots to agentic AI and the overarching strategy of building the invisible empire.
Using operational loops.
Exactly. And we're looking at a hard 24-month window before this simply becomes the baseline standard for survival. So what is the immediate next step?
The immediate step is the capital audit we discussed. Look at your Q3 and Q4 budgets today. If you are spending millions on generative content tools that just write, draw, or summarize, you need to pause that spend.
Stop buying it.
Pause it and ask yourself, does this tool actually solve a hard business problem? Or does it just create more content that my humans now have to manage and read?
And look for where the money is stuck.
Yes. Identify your top 3 operational bottlenecks where capital velocity just grinds to a halt.
Is it claims processing?
Is it inventory turnover? Is it rigid manual pricing updates?
That specific bottleneck is where you build your very first operational loop.
And don't be afraid to kill your darlings. If you have an AI pilot project that has been running for 6 months and it hasn't fundamentally changed the unit economics of that department,
It's probably part of that 95% failure statistic.
kill it. Shut it down. Reallocate that budget to the back end.
Yeah.
Build your invisible empire. Because at the end of the day, your customers do not care if you have a cute conversational chatbot on your homepage.
They care if you are fast, if you're accurate, and if you're cheap.
And you can only achieve those 3 things simultaneously if your internal operations are fully autonomous.
I want to leave the listener with a final thought on this 2026 deadline. Because we often talk about market disruption as this sudden, violent event, like an asteroid hitting the Earth.
Right.
But this shift from chatbots to agents feels much more like a rising tide.
It is a rising tide, and the water is rising very, very fast.
What's the final takeaway you want to leave with the board directors listening today?
Here is the question I want every single board director to ask at their very next strategy meeting.
Right.
If we stop buying software licenses today, if we completely froze that operational expenditure and instead we started building a digital workforce to free up our stuck capital.
What would this company look like in 2026?
Exactly. What would it look like in 24 months?
That is a terrifying question for some leadership teams.
But an incredibly liberating one for others. The companies that answer that question correctly right now are the ones that will dictate the market in 2026.
They won't just be competing.
No, they will be operating at a speed and a cost basis that makes the old linear model completely obsolete.
That is the harsh reality of the invisible empire. It's not about who has the flashiest AI. It's about who has the best loops.
Don't let your money get stuck.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.